And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on our podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Rabbi Yonason Goldson. After graduating from the University of California, Yonason hitchhiked across the U.S. and backpacked across Europe before making his way to the land of Israel, where he spent 9 years studying the wisdom of his heritage and discovering its universal relevance. He spent the next 23 years teaching high school in Budapest, Hungary, Atlanta, Georgia, and St. Louis, where he and his wife now live, happily as empty nesters. I think those two are connected, right? And he is the author of 5 books, hundreds of articles. He's a TEDx speaker, and currently he's the director of ethical imperatives and gives keynotes and presentations across the world. So welcome today, Rabbi.
It's great to be with you, Peter.
Yeah, so let's, I don't think I've had a rabbi on before. So
I hear that a lot.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the transition, because you had a long career in education, right? You're a rabbi and an educator and running high schools all over the world. So I really a two-part question. So why did you leave that? And then what's it been like to sort of move into this world of authorship, thought leadership, content creation, and deployment?
Well, the transition was somewhat unexpected, but in many ways very natural. I went into teaching in the first place because I love ideas, and I grew up with somewhat to my parents' chagrin. My father had a construction business I could have gone into. My grandfather had a law practice I could have gone into, but I always had a sense that I had to find a purpose. I wanted to connect myself with a higher sense of values. I was not raised religious, but I found my way to that. And as I studied in Israel for 9 years, I discovered that there are universal values in the ancient teachings of my heritage, not just specific to Jews, but specific to all human beings. And I wanted to communicate that to young people so that they would have a clear sense of direction in their lives. What happened 3 years ago is that my school closed. I was teaching at a private school, and the way of the world, everybody is abandoning the middle for the extremes. And in the religious world, that to some degree was happening too. And our demographic changed, and the school closed, and I needed to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Got it.
So, I loved speaking to teenagers, and I had the opportunity as a rabbi to speak to adults as well. And I wanted to take that universal message and apply it to some place that I think we can all agree, the world of business. We all want to make more money.
So this is a place where a lot of the folks that I work with and a lot of folks listening and many of my clients deal with, where for whatever reason, in your case, it was somewhat forced. The school closes, right? It's a layoff. It's, they're disgusted with their employer, whatever. There's some external thing that influences, if not determines, it's time to do something else. But I want to sort of touch on, so in essence, this is a startup, right? How do you how do you figure out what you're going to deliver to whom, and then package it, monetize it, and package it and sell it in such a way that you can make a living? Because I would argue, as an educator, fairly straightforward business model: come to school, educate the kids, go home, do it again, right? But now it's a whole different world for you from a business perspective.
Oh yeah, and it's been agonizing reappraisal. I never thought I was going to be a businessman. It's not in my nature to promote myself, market myself, sell myself. I'm an introvert, but the sense of mission and the sense of purpose is really what drove me. I was fortunate to be advised to join the National Speakers Association, where I found some really remarkable and very forthcoming, giving, generous people who help mentor me, teach me, guide me. And of course, some of it is just trial and error, and it's a long learning curve. If you happen to be in a position where you can hire experts to pave the way, that's great. I didn't have that opportunity, so I had to figure out a lot of it on my own. And it's been tough, but it's gratifying to see that I'm slowly getting traction, finding my way into more markets, booking more engagements. And the message is one that, on the one hand, it's a hard sell. There's a certain intuitive sense in business
Sure.
that we have to choose between being ethical and being successful. which I think is a terrible misconception.
Of course.
But at the same time, there's an innate sense we want to be good. We want to do the right thing. We don't want to have to feel that we may have to make that choice between being good and being
Right,
successful.
right. It's it's
And
it's not
so,
binary.
yeah,
So
yeah. So the reaction I've been getting has been very positive.
So this is really interesting because this pattern, right, of oh, here's the areas that are not in my sweet spot, the promotion, the marketing. Oh, by the way, I'm an introvert. By the way, that is so common in this space. It's almost universal, not exclusively. There are plenty of extroverts in the NSA, as we know, but how do you succeed in a world that is requiring you to, you can't not promote or market yourself. The introversion is a different issue, but if you chose to say, listen, I'm just going to create wonderful, beautiful content that's really impactful and whatever, but not going to do anything on the promotion and marketing side, you're going to have a lot of time on your hands. And I think you connected it to the way that you've been able to overcome that is to focus on the mission and the purpose. Is that a fair sort of summary?
Yeah, absolutely. And then to give you a quick anecdote, my mother quit working when she married my father. She raised me. And when I moved out of the house, she started doing something she had never done in her life. She started selling. It was right when timeshare had become
Right.
a phenomenon. My mother thought that timeshare was the greatest thing that had ever been invented. Sincerely, she owned several of them,
Okay.
and she felt she was doing people such a favor by introducing them and getting them to buy. She became the number two seller in her office, working half time when the number one seller was working overtime because people just sensed her sincerity, her authenticity, and she's been my inspiration. That when you have a product that you believe is going to serve your clients, so you have to get over yourself.
So I think that's first of all, I think I bought a couple of timeshares from your mother in Cancun years ago. But on a separate note, that's exactly what I tell a lot of my clients is like, listen, if this marketing piece, the sales piece, the negotiations, the talking about money, those are all necessary. But listen, what are you really trying to achieve? You want to get in front of a lot of people and get your message out there and have the impact. It is a necessary evil, and think about those as necessary obstacles to overcome in order to unleash the power of your content. So, in your mom's case, she was a true believer in the power of time sharing, and I'm sure she enjoyed them and was sincere or whatever. And you could just probably radiate it from her versus the cheesy sales guy trying to sell you something they couldn't care less about. And, next week they're going to be selling something else or whatever.
Yeah, in the language of sales, we talk about the difference between pushing and
Yeah.
pulling. Pushing somebody into a deal is something nobody likes. Being so compelling and so passionate that people are drawn to you and drawn to your product, yeah, that makes everybody feel good, and it leads to more and more success.
Yep. So I want to now touch a little bit on, we've touched on sort of the promotion, the marketing, the necessity of having to deal with that. And it doesn't mean you have to be a master of it yourself. Obviously, you can partner with others. How did you choose the markets that you could serve? Because your message is so universal, which in and of itself is a curse and a blessing, if you will. But how did you say, these are the types of groups, audiences, et cetera, that I think I could have the most impact with and make a living?
I'm still struggling with that.
Okay.
When you start out, it's a little bit of spray and pray. You just try to,
Said the rabbi.
you know, yeah, you just try anybody who's interested. I'm there for. My first couple of clients were manufacturers and distributors, which I really never expected. Since then, I seem to be attracting a lot in the healthcare industry,
Okay.
even though my message is certainly not industry specific. I recently booked a gig with the Police Chiefs Association, which I'm really excited about because I come from a background of service, and to serve a community of people who serve is very gratifying.
Well, let's look at that the other way. So are there groups that you've looked? So part of this is a spray and pray and trial and error. There's some logical assumptions that people in the healthcare field are clearly of service, right? Police chiefs are clearly of service. Would you look at that the other way and say, these are the types of people that it would be so hard to convince them that this message is powerful that I'm not going to waste my energy there?
Well, to some degree, if you're serving a community of people in service, there's an assumption they already have a bit of an ethical mindset, and so then it's a question of supporting and taking that ethical mindset to the next level. For instance, one of the challenges in the healthcare industry is that their budgets are so tight, they really can't afford to pay people what those people deserve to be paid. And they know it,
Yep. Yep.
and they don't have a solution. So, therefore, creating an environment of appreciation, gratitude, trust, genuine concern. A recent study found that they asked people what they wanted most from a job, the number one answer was a boss we can trust. People want to feel their partners. They want to feel appreciated for their efforts and their contributions. And in many ways, that's worth more than money. And so creating a culture of ethics and a mindset of ethics really gives people something they want more than money.
Yep.
It gives them the sense that their efforts are appreciated and they are making a difference. And that that creates a healthy culture.
Where I was going is what are the other things that you could look at trend wise, psychographically, demographically, whatever, when you start to choose markets to serve, right? So, for example, maybe your message wouldn't be as easy to resonate for bond traders or something as they would be for school guidance counselors. I'm just making stuff up, right? Like, so there's some preconceived assumptions that you can make based on what are the type of people that are attracted to this industry? What does this company stand for? What does this industry look like? How does that connect with or not connect with mine? Because you have limited resources in terms of how you market, whether that's time, energy, effort, money. So are there things that you're able to ascertain that will increase the probability of your message resonating with a particular population?
Well, certainly talking to people knows what, not so much in the initial approach, but in the conversation,
Okay.
getting a sense from when I speak to executive directors or media professionals, getting a sense of how they view their own culture and what they're looking for. What do you hope will happen from me addressing your audience? I say this isn't quite addressing your question, maybe a little obliquely, is trying to find a language to show people the innate connection between success in terms of brand image and employee engagement and ethics. Look at some of the catastrophic errors that have been committed in the past few years. United Airlines, Wells Fargo, Novartis. There are plenty of them. And then, of course, you can go back further. Enron, those types of things. This is what happens when you don't have a culture of ethics. And how do you see your company's image? How do you want your company's image to be seen?
Got it.
Because if you're seen as an ethical corporation or an ethical company, ethical business, you're going to draw clients
Right.
to you. People want to patronize businesses that they look up to and admire.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to talk for a couple minutes, if we could. You mentioned the NSA and how that's been a group that's been helpful to you from a learning perspective, et cetera. Let's talk about the business side of speaking, right? And how you've been able to approach that, and some of the things that you've learned, and some of the things that are working for you, and maybe some of the things that haven't worked as well as you would have liked.
The NSA is just a phenomenal organization, and on a local level, we bring in our chapter brings in a guest speaker once a month, and sometimes the focus is on platform techniques and speaking techniques. But NSA has in contrast to Toastmasters, for instance, which is all about the presentation, NSA tilts more towards the business side.
Sure.
So it's a very useful and supportive organization when it comes to that. And a lot of it is just if you think of it in terms of a diamond, you start with this stone that just looks kind of like a white rock, and then you have to cut it, and then you have to polish it, and if you think about polishing a stone, you go over it, over and over it, and there doesn't seem to be any change. But you keep at it and at it and at it. And it's much that way in really any discipline. I mean, we all know by now about the 10,000 hour rule. You just keep doing it. And I think about how much time I spend on my website, for instance, just tweaking the language and always asking people who are farther along in their careers, more experienced, for their input. Take a look at this. What do you think? What are your impressions? How might this be better? Look at other people's websites. Look at their promotional materials. What are they doing? How do you find a language? So you talk about speaking to people's pain points. There was a question somebody asked me very early on, and my answer was,
Right, right,
um,
right.
what problem am I solving? As opposed to having an inspirational message. People aren't in the market for motivational speakers so much
Right,
anymore. It used to be a
right.
great business. Now they want what? How are you going to solve my problems? Well, I need to know your problems are, and I need to be able to articulate that I understand your problems and that I have a solution to fix your problems. And I have to be able to do that in a very short period of time because people's attention spans are so short and their time commitments are so great. So it's really just this process of absorbing, trying out, getting feedback, and then start again. Right? Wash, rinse,
Yep,
repeat. Is that how it
yep,
goes?
exactly. So what about, I mean, I think one of the things I've seen speakers do earlier in their careers is, I don't know if I would say they're overly focused. I would say maybe they're exclusively focused on the craft, which is critically important and not an easy thing to do. The mastery of the stage, the body language, the communication skills, the arc of the story, the emotional piece of whatever. But then they're forgetting or just overlooking, or it's just not on their radar. Wait a minute, this is a transaction. I have a buyer, right, that has an objective, and I need to be of service to that objective. And part of it is not doing anything less on the stage, but that's a separate way of communicating. And you hit the nail on the head in terms of what are the pain points, what are they trying to achieve, what does success look like for you at the end of this conference or an event, and how can I help you drive that there? And I think that's where people that's a capability that needs to be developed in speakers earlier on in their careers.
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of fantastic speakers that are not doing nearly as well professionally as some
Yep.
good speakers or average speakers, right? Because it's a business and it's sales.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you hear about somebody or you hear somebody who's really successful and you go, I wonder what everybody's so excited about. I mean, good marketing goes a long way. So you really can't ignore that. However, the advice that your best marketing tool is your speech.
Sure, of course.
The problem with that is you have to get on the platform, you have to get on the stage first before your speech is going to sell itself. But somebody just mentioned to me the other day, he said, your TED talk you were so natural. You practice a lot. I said,
Yeah, no
yeah.
kidding, right?
The reason it was so natural is because I practiced so much that I didn't have to think about what I was doing.
Right. And you could be in this, and you could be in the moment and not
Yeah,
thinking.
and I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
that's in music, that's in
Sure.
sports, that's in anything. All that muscle memory is what produces a 5-star
Yep.
performance. And if you skimp on the preparation and the practice, you might have great marketing. You eventually, people it's going to catch up with you.
Exactly. Well, as we start to wind down here, any final thoughts or reflections to share with others that are in a similar place, things that you've learned, things that you're learning?
I can't overstate the importance of mentors. Sometimes you have to pay for them. I found a speech coach a year ago that she really helped me recraft, recast, overhaul my keynote. I'm giving my new keynote for the first time next month,
Oh, wow.
and it's I'm very excited because she's as difficult as it is to hear all the she crossing things out, throwing things out, telling me this is bad, right? But ultimately, I've got a much more finely honed speech that I'm very confident in. And then in terms of business, just having people you could talk to, bouncing off ideas off people, and if you can't afford a lot of full-time mentors, there are usually people that you can find who are willing to give, people who have, a lot of people want to pay forward what they've been beneficiaries of. And looking and finding and listening and learning.
Well, and I would say, from my experience, and I've spoken at NSA and have several clients that are involved there, very generous organization, right? So people think, speaking is a lonely business. It's not like you go to the office every day, and there's the you're sitting next to 50 others like the accountants might be. So they tend to be a really wonderful, generous community that's very giving. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So great. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. Lots of great stuff here. And I appreciate your coming on board and sharing your journey with us. Thank you.
No, it's been delightful. Thanks so much, Peter.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.